Which of the following metabolic changes occur in a low insulin glucagon ratio? Okay. So, the question says which of the following metabolic changes. So, we understand we are talking about a metabolic pathway and we are given with two hormones here, one is insulin, another is a glucagon, and what are we talking about is a ratio. So, insulin is to glucagon ratio, alright. A little math over here. Insulin is a hypoglycemic hormone. We know this, right? Insulin is a hypoglycemic hormone that reduces the blood glucose level, and glucagon is a hyperglycemic hormone which increases the blood glucose. But do they have any other role from this? Yes, insulin is a anabolic hormone and glucagon is a catabolic hormone. So, what does that mean? Insulin will cause or lead to the formation of different important compounds in the body. One such compound is protein. So, in the presence of insulin, there is protein synthesis. In the presence of insulin, there is fat synthesis. In the presence of insulin, there is glycogen synthesis. So, extra glucose will be converted to glycogen. So, glycogen is produced, proteins are produced, lipids are produced. Whereas, in glucagon, the glycogen would be broken down to glucose. So, it is a catabolic hormone and insulin is an anabolic hormone. With this brief understanding, what is the insulin glucagon ratio mean to us, right? So, when there is a low insulin to glucagon ratio, what is going to happen here? Will there be anabolic or will there be catabolic? So, if I write I by G and I say that the ratio is low, what does that mean? Insulin is low and glucagon is high. They will act not in the same direction but the opposite direction. I will give you another scenario. Insulin by glucagon, and I will call it as a high insulin glucagon ratio. That means insulin is high and as I said the direction should change here, glucagon is low. So, these are the two scenarios we can expect, a high ratio and a low ratio. So, when a ratio is low, would there be anabolism or would there be catabolism? It would be more of catabolic because insulin is low. When we have a high ratio, would it be anabolic or catabolic? This would be anabolic. So, we understand low insulin glucagon ratio is catabolic, correct? And that is what our question is asking us. What happens when the insulin glucagon ratio is low? So, would there be anabolism or would there be catabolism? There would be catabolism. Now, let us look at the options. So, option number 1 or A, activation of lipoprotein lipase. Option number 2, activation of glycogen synthase. Option number 3, activation of phosphofructokinase 1, activation of hormone sensitive lipase. So, which one of these are catabolic and which one of these are anabolic? So, I told you, let me write here, this low insulin glucagon ratio is catabolic and not anabolic. So, let us look into the options here. Activation of lipoprotein lipase, would it be anabolic or catabolic? This is anabolic. Activation of glycogen synthase, this is anabolic. Activation of phosphofructokinase 1, this again would be anabolic. Activation of hormone sensitive lipase, this would be catabolic. So, have you understood here? So, out of these three are anabolic and one is catabolic. And what is our question asking? Low insulin glucagon ratio. So, what would be the correct option here? The correct option is option number D, that is activation of hormone sensitive lipase. Now, the question comes as to where are these enzymes or which are the metabolic pathways which deal with these enzymes. So, coming to the first one, activation of activation of lipoprotein lipase. Where is this present? So, lipoprotein lipase is present in the capillaries of mainly the adipose tissue. So, once the liver has synthesized triglycerides, it is taken up by the VLDL and the chylomicrons and they pass through the blood circulation. While they go through the blood circulation, the enzymes are present in the capillaries, alright. So, there are enzymes in the capillaries. So, think these are the enzymes in the capillaries and the enzyme is LPL or lipoprotein lipase. Okay. Now, what is going to happen when these enzymes act on chylomicrons and VLDL? They break down triglycerides to fatty acids and glycerol. These fatty acids will be taken up by the adipose tissue. Once inside the adipose tissue, again the fatty acids join together and form triglycerides. So, what's the action of lipoprotein lipase? It clears the triglycerides from the plasma, take it into the adipose tissue and reform the triglycerides. So, that becomes an anabolic pathway, correct? Now, what happens with the second one, that is activation of glycogen synthase. So, glycogen synthase would mean formation of glycogen. So, you are in a well-fed state. So, what happens in a well-fed state? You have just eaten your meal, you have more glucose, the more glucose goes in for the formation of glycogen. Again, this is a anabolic pathway. Activation of phosphofructokinase 1. Which pathway are we dealing with here? This would be the glycolysis. So, what is the function of glycolysis? It is going to help us form more ATPs, correct? It is going to form more ATPs via forming pyruvate and then forming acetyl-CoA. So, phosphofructokinase is an important insulin regulated enzyme of glycolysis. So, this is also not possible because phosphofructokinase requires insulin and in this case insulin level is low. So, we are left with option number 4, that is activation of hormone sensitive lipase. The word is telling you hormone sensitive. Which is the hormone this lipase is sensitive to? It is sensitive to mainly glucagon and epinephrine. So, what is happening in this scenario? Insulin is low, glucagon is high. So, when glucagon is high, hormone sensitive lipase gets activated. What is hormone sensitive lipase then? Hormone sensitive lipase will break down triglycerides from the adipose tissue. So, you have your adipose tissue here. So, triglycerides are broken down to fatty acids and glycerol. So, hormone sensitive lipase does this action. This is controlled by glucagon. And what is the mechanism it uses? It uses the second messenger. Because it's a hormone, it is using a second messenger, that is cyclic AMP. So, low insulin glucagon ratio means there is more of glucagon and activates hormone sensitive lipase via the cyclic AMP. Insulin will inhibit high hormone sensitive lipase. Why should this happen in a catabolic condition is when you are in a state of fasting, not well-fed state, you are in a state of fasting, we need fatty acids to give us ATP. So, fatty acids will give us ATP via beta oxidation. So, we know beta oxidation is a pathway that breaks down fatty acids to ATP. From where do we get the fatty acid? It has to be obviously from a stored organ. Storage is in the adipose tissue. So, hormone sensitive lipase will break down the triglycerides, give us that fatty acid. Fatty acids will go for beta oxidation and we will end up getting ATP. What happens to the glycerol part of it is used for gluconeogenesis. So, glycerol goes in for gluconeogenesis in order to maintain our glucose level. So, what we need to understand here is this condition fasting or is this condition well-fed state? So, here we have to understand is when insulin glucagon ratio is low, that means we are at the stage of fasting. When insulin by glucagon ratio is high, that means we are at the well-fed state. This is the concept we need to understand via this MCQ. I hope it's clear now. Low insulin glucagon ratio means less of insulin, more of glucagon. So it will lead us to a path which is going to cause catabolism, and here it is activation of hormone sensitive lipase, and I have given the explanation for the same. Now let's just understand what is the fed state. What happens once you have a meal? Now we always use the word fasting and starvation very conveniently. So let's understand when is the time we say somebody is in the fed state and when somebody is in the fasting state. Once you have your meal, 1 to 4 hours would be the fed state, or we better tell it as a well-fed state. 4 to 16 hours would be the post-absorptive state. Okay, 16 to 48 hours. Okay, this would be the state of like a short starvation. Okay, then 2 days to another 5 days would be your starvation. Okay, so 16 to 48 hours we can even call it as the fasting state. So when we say somebody is fasting, that would generally mean it is more than 16 hours and less than 2 days. More than 2 days, if somebody is fasted, they go into the period of starvation. So we have to be very careful when we use the word fasting and starving. Anything more than 2 days or 48 hours is what constitutes starvation. Anything more than 5 days would be prolonged starvation. So well-fed state. Let's see what is well-fed state now. So that constitutes what happens in the body when you had a good balanced diet or a good meal. We are in a state of well-fed state. So this could be a little overwhelming because you see an entire pathway, but just go with me in this pathway according to the numbers. Alright, so what happens once you have your meal? We can obtain 3 kind of fuels. One is carbohydrate, right? Second is fat, and third is protein. So our diet will have carbohydrates, fats and proteins. So what happens once you take your meal? It undergoes digestion and absorption. So we know digestion is something that is complex is broken down to simple. So carbohydrate, what you take as starch, will be broken down to glucose. Fat, that is triglycerides, will be re-esterified into chylomicrons. Proteins are broken down into its minute amino acids. So we know 1, 2, 3 is clear. Glucose, chylomicrons and amino acids via carbohydrates, fat and protein. What happens to hormones here? When we are in a well-fed state, we are at a high insulin glucagon ratio. That means once you've had your meal, insulin will be released. There is no work for glucagon, so glucagon will be decreased. So as I said, insulin, glucagon both are in opposite directions. So next let's go on to the action, what insulin does to this glucose. So glucose will be taken up by the liver. So glucose gets converted to acetyl-CoA, first becomes pyruvate. So what pathways am I talking here? So glucose becomes glycolysis and forms pyruvate, then enters the TCA cycle, we get acetyl-CoA and finally we get what we need is the energy, that is ATP. Excess of glucose if you have consumed, that gets stored as glycogen. Still you've taken a still more excess of glucose, the acetyl-CoA starts forming triglycerides. That's how carbohydrates can get converted to fats. Okay, the triglycerides will then be taken up by the VLDL. Now, this is in the liver. What does glucose do to the brain? For the brain, glucose is the primary fuel. Compared to the rest of the organs, the primary aim of our body is to supply uninterrupted glucose to the brain. So, the brain, glucose enters, again you have TCA cycle, we get ATPs. That's how the brain gets its energy. Another important organ that requires uninterrupted supply of glucose is our RBC, but the glycolysis here we would call it as anaerobic glycolysis, simply because there is no mitochondria in the RBC. So, we get lactate over here. Now, let us come to point number 10. The glucose then would enter into the muscle. Muscle also the same fate. It undergoes TCA cycle and will give us ATPs. Also, another important part in the muscle is the excess glucose gets stored into glycogen. So, which are the two organs we saw in this diagram where glycogen is stored? One is in the liver, other is in the muscle. Excess glucose will then go into the adipose tissues and get stored as triglycerides. How does it do it? It gets converted to acetyl-CoA. Excess acetyl-CoA forms triglycerides in the adipose tissues. And then we have chylomicrons, that is our fats from our diet, which splits to fatty acids and glycerol. This is by the enzyme lipoprotein lipase. Fatty acids will enter into the adipose tissues and get stored. The glycerol will be there in the blood. And then the amino acids will be taken to the tissues because tissues needs proteins. So, for the structure tissues amino acid is required. So, protein is formed. Amino acids can also go in for TCA cycle and we can get ATP. So, what did we understand? The state of well fed, that is the carbohydrates, the lipids and the proteins will give us energy, that is in the liver, brain, muscle and the tissues. But what happens to the excess? If you have excess glucose, that gets stored as glycogen, it is not wasted. If you still have more, it goes into the formation of triglycerides and gets stored into the adipose tissue. So, why does this happen is the body is preparing itself. If there is a state of fasting, the stored forms of fuel will then be used up. So, this is a state of well fed. Now, let us look at fasting state. So, what happens once you have crossed that 4 hours, you cross 16 hours, now your body needs the fuel. From the stored deposits what we have, the fuel will be used up now. So, what is the ratio we see here? Now, the ratio is low insulin glucagon ratio. So, fasting state would mean the ratio has reversed now. The insulin is low, glucagon has rised up. Now, what happens next is you see this part. I told you the stored fuel, that is glycogen, will be broken down to glucose by glycogenolysis. Why this should happen is, as I told you, brain needs uninterrupted supply of glucose. From where will it derive it? From the stored glycogen. The glucose will be taken to the brain and will get converted to ATPs via the TCA cycle. Again, RBCs also will require glucose and forms lactate via anaerobic glycolysis. What happens next? You come here, you see here, the triglycerides will break down to fatty acid. Why? Because once glucose is depleted, the next form of fuel the body uses up is the fatty acids. The fatty acids will undergo beta oxidation and will give us the required ATPs. The fatty acids will go into the muscle and give us ATPs. So, fatty acids we are seeing has entered into the liver, the fatty acids have entered into the muscle and have given us ATPs. Alright, now what happens next after this is, once fatty acids are producing more number of acetyl-CoA, we will get another important fuel, that is ketone bodies. So, as and when the fasting period goes into a period of starvation, the ketone bodies will be the fuel of choice. So, ketone bodies will give us ATPs as it gets formed into acetyl-CoA. Ketone bodies will not be used by the liver. Liver can only produce ketone bodies, liver cannot use ketone bodies as its fuel. All right. Now, which is another kind of fuel we have is the amino acids. So, proteins from the muscle starts breaking down. So, which of the amino acids we are talking here about? Mainly the alanine. Alanine gives us glucose. So, alanine, the amino acid, goes and gives glucose. What is the process called when an amino acid can give us glucose? That would be gluconeogenesis. Okay, so the glucose is formed, then because there is excess of protein breakdown, it gets converted to urea, and in the urine you see a lot of urea that has been released. Now, lactate, what has been formed in the RBC, will also enter the liver to give us glucose. Why? Because lactate is also a precursor for gluconeogenesis. So, what do we understand by this diagram of fasting state is the stored form of fuels will now be broken down to give us energy. Even at this point, we should understand that brain requires glucose itself for the utilization. The rest of the body organs can utilize fatty acids, and even if fatty acids are not enough, we can use the ketone bodies. But the preferred fuel for the brain would still remain as glucose. So, cardiac muscle, skeletal muscle can use up ketone bodies for up to any long period time of starvation. So, I hope it's understood. So, what is the ratio we are talking here about is the insulin glucagon ratios. In well-fed state, it is high, and in fasting stage, this level or the ratio is low.
To watch the full video, download our app on App Store and Play Store.